Christmas time is here. Can you believe it? Just a week away. It's December 19th. It's a Thursday. Happy Friday Eve. Makes the weekend seem closer. We're at 8:27 in the morning right now in western Iowa. And we do have a weather spotlight. National Weather Service just came out with their monthly temperature outlook for January. Warm across the south and east, and better chances for above average for South Texas. And we've got warmth in western Alaska expected for January precipitation-wise. Above average there in the northern Rockies and also around the Great Lakes all the way down into Arkansas, Tennessee. Below average along the south and above average snow for much of Alaska. We also have the 3-month outlook. This gets us January, February, and March. And our temperatures are expected to be below average northwest across the northern plains into Nebraska. And we have a chance of above average temperatures along the south and the east. Precipitation-wise, looks to be wettest or snowiest across the northwest into the plains, northern Rockies. And our best chance of above average precipitation there from Michigan into Indiana and Ohio, but above average chances stretching all the way down into Arkansas, Tennessee, northern Mississippi. Dry along the south. Now, dry doesn't mean no rain or snow. It just means below average. And there you see Alaska. All right, let's check out today's hazards. We have some snow coming for the northern plains into the upper Midwest today, and could be heavy for some. Winter storm warnings there in the pink. Winter weather advisories around that, so be advised. There'll be winter weather. And wind is an issue. South Dakota, Nebraska, here into Iowa. It's a southerly wind warming us up here in Iowa. Last night when I got home from church, it was 19. This morning it was 30, so temperatures were rising overnight with that southerly breeze. A little bit of fog around San Francisco, central valleys of California, and some, did I say snow fog? And then some fog for Florida into, say, southern Georgia. All right, temperature change from yesterday morning. It's colder. Texas through Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and it's warmer here in Iowa, but even warmer than that as you get into Nebraska, South Dakota, parts of Kansas, and Colorado. Currently, we are in the 20s to near 30 here in Iowa, even though it's warmer than it was yesterday. And those freezing temperatures go all the way through Missouri, scattered throughout Oklahoma back into Texas. Still hanging on to freezing temperatures this morning into parts of the Midwest up into the Northeast and, of course, the mountains of the West. 40s right now in Oregon. All right, your 48-hour precipitation, that's going to be mostly snow up there. And we'll show you that here in a second for the northern plains through the Great Lakes into the Northeast. But it's rain along the Pacific Northwest coast for the most part. Maybe a little snow up there in the Cascades. But there you see our chance of snow. And it looks like Wisconsin will be the big winner. We could see up to a foot here in some areas. Maybe that's closer to 8 to 10 inches. But pretty good snowfall a week before Christmas. Will it stay cold enough to hang on to it for a white Christmas? Well, we'll show you that here in a little bit. Spoiler alert, yeah, probably. And even into New England, we're getting some snow. New York State particularly. Will they hang on to their snow for a white Christmas? Well, I think they're going to add a little bit, and yeah, most of them probably will. All right. Surface today. There we see our heavy snow, North Dakota all the way into Michigan. A little bit of rain and snow, Pacific Northwest. And a little bit of a mix, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and a few showers hanging on in North Carolina. Anomalous temperatures today. It's above average here in Iowa and even more so Nebraska down into Kansas. Also Nevada, quite warm for this time of year compared to average. But it's much cooler. Northern Plains, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota coming in behind the snow. It's going to invade. You'll see. It's going to cool off in the southeast where it's pretty close to average, but some cold air is coming. Surface overnight races through the plains in the Midwest, all the way through Oklahoma, all the way through Indiana westward. And so these are your fronts in the morning. And so that cold air is coming. Snow up there in North Dakota, a mix for much of the Great Lakes Northeast, a little bit of rain for the central coast, and then some rain along the Pacific Northwest. Anomalous temperatures tomorrow. It's going to be back below average for the northern plains, upper Midwest, a little bit below average, much of the east, and above average for the west. Surface on Saturday, a mix of rain and snow for the Pacific Northwest, little light snow for Minnesota. Looks like more snow for the Northeast. Will you have a white Christmas? Yeah, I think so for most of you, even though it will be warming up on Christmas Day. Anomalies for Saturday, kind of the country split in half. Warm west and cool east. Let's take a look at our GFS model. We'll start at 6 o'clock this morning. And here we see our snow already getting going into Minnesota, back into North Dakota. And that's kind of the big player as we move through the day. That snow will be moving into Wisconsin, clipping northeastern Iowa. And you can see the cold air coming in behind the low. So by the time we get to tonight, we start to see that cold air spilling southward while the snow continues into Michigan. And as we go, there's the rain for the Pacific Northwest, changing to snow in the northern Cascades of Washington. The snow fizzles out as it heads into the Ohio Valley, but the cold air, again, invading the northern plains into Nebraska and Iowa, even down into Missouri, even getting down into Tennessee, y'all. And for the Northeast, too, it's going to stay cold and get colder. The Northeast is going to feel the effects of this cold air as we get into Friday afternoon. A little bit of light snow here in the Northeast, a little heavier for West Virginia. A little bit of light snow here in North Dakota along the northern plains. And as we get into Saturday, this is midnight Friday. So Friday is our coldest day here in Iowa, and then Saturday we're going to start to see the warm air start to invade and push the cold air out. But Saturday is still going to be pretty cold. Sunday is going to start warming up here in Iowa. But you see that cold air getting down close to the southeast, and it will be chilly. And as we get into Saturday now, we see light snow, mainly New England, even into Connecticut, even Long Island, seeing some of that light snow. And again, that cold air into the southeast. Another system now moving into the Pacific Northwest for Saturday the 21st in the afternoon and evening. That spreads into Idaho. So we've got pretty good snows in Idaho for the upper elevations, rain at the lower elevations, and the cold air along the southeast and east. And then the warm air is going to start to push that back, especially as for the Great Lakes. Well, maybe not quite the Great Lakes, but certainly here in the Midwest. We see that snow inland for the northern Rockies. It's not a lot. And then another system approaching the Pacific Northwest as we get into Sunday. A little patch of snow busting out in Nevada. And then that system moves inland, rain, Northern California through Oregon and Washington along the coast, snow in the higher elevations. That moves inland, a little bit of snow for Idaho. And will it snow in Boise? I mean, it kind of looked like it went across Boise, but, you know, we have 3-hour jumps here, so it's hard to tell for sure. I don't see any rain in there, maybe a little bit. So we'll see for Boise on the 23rd. Another patch of snow up here into Wisconsin, padding your snow totals. Parts of Michigan into Minnesota. So I think that's where you're going to see your white Christmas this year. A little bit of light snow in Idaho. We're starting to see some rain now, busting out from mostly Missouri, Illinois here, and getting into Michigan. So that rain is a little bit further north. As we get into Christmas Eve day, this is midnight the 23rd. Here's the morning of the 24th. A big system in the Pacific Northwest, and it looks like rain pretty high up in Oregon, although some snow up here in Washington State, heavy rain for Northern California, Southern Oregon, and a swath of rain all the way from Texas through Ohio, with some snow further north into New York on Christmas Eve day. More snow for New England to help ensure your white Christmas. Rain, Ohio, and even some thunderstorms down here in Texas and Arkansas. Some heavy rain for Northern California, maybe even into the mountains, pretty high snow level. The highest peaks in Oregon getting snow. A little cooler up there in Washington State with more snow Christmas Eve. This is noon Christmas Eve Central Time. And then the afternoon, We're seeing these thunderstorms here in East Texas heading your way. Houston, some rain still come down Ohio Valley, but it is snow up in New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and a lot of snow in eastern Oregon, eastern Washington, the Idaho Panhandle, and the snow levels are falling in California for Christmas Eve. This is 3 hours before Santa time. So 9 o'clock Central, snow moving into Idaho, into Nevada, and we have pretty heavy showers, maybe some thunderstorms for you, Houston, up into Arkansas, rain moving into even Pennsylvania, but hanging into snow or a mix from northern Pennsylvania into New York. All right, here we go. Next slide is midnight, Christmas Eve, a little bit of rain, Treasure Valley, but most of the Gem State getting snow, a little bit of snow in Nevada. So some places for Santa to land, same for Utah. But it's rain, heavy rain along the coast in Texas, some pretty heavy rains in Arkansas, lighter rains up through Pennsylvania, and it changes to snow into Massachusetts and New York. All right, Christmas morning, still snowing up there in Vermont, New Hampshire, parts of Massachusetts, snow coming down in Colorado and Wyoming. It's a little bit spotty. Another storm for the Pacific Northwest. There you see rain Christmas Day across Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, a little bit of South Carolina up into Virginia and southern Pennsylvania, melting your snow if you have any in Pennsylvania there. A little bit of snow coming into Nebraska. This is midnight Christmas night, so Christmas is over. And our snow and our rain and snow in the Pacific Northwest moving in, some wind here too, to go with your heavy rain along the coast. That snow spreads eastward into Idaho. Here's where I think you're going to have your white Christmas, Boise, as the day after. But some snow to enjoy. And then some rain along the coast, Northern California, all the way up into Washington. Now, let's go quicker and just see if we see anything happening between Christmas and the end of the month. And it stays dry or warm east, a lot of rain for the East Coast. Your snow is going to be getting rained on. Maybe a patch of snow for Missouri, northern Missouri by the 30th. And, this is all so far out. We'll see. But will it be a Christmas Eve snow for the panhandle of Texas, maybe into West Texas? We'll see. Heavy rain in the southeast on the 1st if this comes true. And then looks like a big storm heading up the coast, East Coast, to start out January. All right, highs for today. Here we go. 40s to near 50, Iowa. 50s for Nebraska, and then getting warmer as you head south. A lot of 60s in Texas and even warmer in Florida, but 50s and 60s for the southeast, and it's going to get colder. 30s as you head north. The cold air is up there in North Dakota and Montana. That cold air races south overnight. So those low temperatures getting pretty low. You can see a single digits there. That's Sioux City, Iowa, 9 degrees. And single digits all the way up to the Canadian border, even Minot at minus 10. So the cold air is coming overnight down to 30 in Lubbock, Texas, and Boise, Idaho to start the day tomorrow, which will be colder. North Plains, Midwest, only 20s here in Iowa. Freezing temperatures down to Kansas City over to St. Louis, and it's staying cold in the Northeast, getting cooler in the Southeast, and that'll be even more pronounced for the Southeast Saturday. And so the cold air hangs on northern plains through the upper Midwest, through the Great Lakes, into the Northeast. The warm air staying in the Southwest. I think as we go through all these 7-day temperature maps, Tucson and Phoenix are upper 70s to near 80 the whole time. So no change for you, and that's not super unusual for this time of year. All right, warming up in the plains on Sunday, cool in the Northeast. You could even call it chilly with 40s and 50s. And the cold air hanging on into the Northeast. And then Monday, the cold air retreats even more, but the Northeast is hanging on to it. And so as we get into Christmas Eve, remember there's snow on the ground from the northern plains through the upper Midwest, through the Great Lakes, and up into New England. Will it stay cold enough to hang on to that snow? Well, you get mid-30s in Wisconsin. You're not going to melt a lot of snow that way, but some. but I think you're going to hang on to your white Christmas in Wisconsin. And then as we get into Christmas Day, there are your temperatures. Warm, Texas, Oklahoma, all the way through the southeast and Florida, a little cool in Georgia, mid-50s. Kind of warm for this time of year. Iowa, mid-40s, low to mid-40s. And, all the way across the Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley with those kind of temperatures for the Midwest. And hanging in there for Phoenix and Tucson, maybe slightly cooler, but 70s. All right, 8 to 14 day temperatures like we've been telling you. Now, this is the day after Christmas until January 1, and we're hanging on to the warmth. And for precipitation, it's going to be above average, it looks like, if this comes true, except Southern California, Southern Arizona, Southern New Mexico, far west Texas. White Christmas, according to the GFS Ensemble. Hanging on to an inch of snow or more. That's the definition of a white Christmas. From North Dakota, most of Minnesota and Wisconsin, parts of northern Michigan, and a lot of New England. It looks like most of New York, except for when you get down to south of Albany, and Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, and the mountains of the West. We go to the Canadian. Canadian is a little further south of the White Christmas, maybe up there in northeastern Iowa even, and a little bit more of Pennsylvania, closer to New York City, even a little bit of New Jersey here with a White Christmas, and then, of course, the mountains in the West. And the European has more snow on the ground in the West, but kind of the similar locations. Maybe more of the mountains of Northern California with a White Christmas, according to the European. And there you see our swath of White Christmas snow from the northern plains through the upper Midwest, through the Great Lakes into the Northeast. So we're getting closer, so we have a little more certainty. This is probably where we're going to end up for a White Christmas, but there's still a week away, 6 days away, so for things to change. And of course, we'll keep you posted right here on the Weather Mike. Really appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in.